Another day, another video. Welcome back everyone to the channel. If you're new here, consider subscribing. This is our fourth episode of our How to Beat series. If you want to know how to beat Drytron, Virtual World, or Zodiac Eldritch, make sure you go check out those videos that we have up on the channel already. If you're interested in deck profiles such as Mathmech, Blue Eyes, Dark Magician that can actually compete a little bit against, well, you know, table 50. No, we try to make it as competitive as possible, but otherwise up to the date Cyber Dragon content that we are actually known for is what we try to bring you guys regularly as well. Otherwise, any deck profiles or how to beats that you want, we do have prank kids and dinosaurs planned. So any other how to beats that you would like to see, comment them down below. Any other deck profiles, comment them down below. Make sure to check out our tier list for the new year. I think it's actually a pretty good one, and out of, the few I have seen, I don't want to brag, but I do think it's on the better end of them. So what are we going to do here today? We're going to talk about what does Invoked Dogmatika do, what to hand trap, and some side deck or counters that you can play in your main deck. And that's about how we do these series. It seems like you guys like them. They go over pretty well, so we're not going to change anything unless you guys have a good suggestion, which again, you can use the comment section down below. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about what does Invoked Dogmatika do. Well, they kind of set up their one card Makaba pretty much right away with their Invoke card, because they'll play like the Terraforming, the 3 Meltdown, the 3 Alistairs, and statistically they're going to see it more often than they won't, and they'll either bait out your hand traps with these cards, or they'll establish their Makaba for a negate before they go into anything else, because, well, that's kind of good. You want a negate before Nibiru, a negate before like your combo really kicks off, and if you take the negate prior to that, a lot of the time you're still going to play through and do more. So it's kind of a horse apiece, and they can play things too, like triple tactics talent really well. So if you do happen to gamma the Alistair or something like that, they can easily draw into more pieces to keep extending and to keep building up their board. They play a lot of hand traps. Like, they got room for hand traps for days. They can easily play like 12 to 15 hand traps, so that makes it hard for you. Even if they can't combo or you stop them, well, they hand trap you, and then they have so many cards and ways to get into combo again on their turn. The deck is crazy, and the Invoked engine just recurs itself so well already. They can follow up really good with a Dogmatika play, whether they go for, if they can establish both the Fleur in hand and the punishment on field for a pop 2 by sending in Tis, or even pop 1 by sending Titaniclad and then special summoning Ecclesia in the end phase, and then getting back cards to keep pushing through and win on their following turn. They can also play cards like the small Shadal package, where they can set up a window right away on your turn as well, which obviously isn't going to be very fun, because wind is kind of oppressive and it can be very strong, so keep that in mind. But if they are going that route and running the Maximus to get the window play, which more often than not they will need it. I believe they can actually pull it off with just the Nadir's Servant, but a lot of the time they will need the Maximus play, which you can easily counter. We're going to skip ahead in the video a little bit here and counter it by running like a Cyber Dragon Nova and your own Invoked Makaba by sending your Nova, and then it special summons the Makaba. And additionally, you can run Elder Entity and Tis and pop, like, say, their Maximus, because it has the big defense on the field, so you'll get a free Makaba and pop one of their cards if that's something that you're interested in. And if the Maximus play kind of makes a comeback, it comes in and out of the format based on, well, are people playing the counter to it. What can we hand trap versus Invoked Dogmatika? Covering the same hand traps as the other videos. Frame Gear Gamma, well, you can hit the Makaba, obviously. I really like hitting the Alistair too, because they burnt up their normal summon, and even if they open the Invocation, the Gamma and Driver gets summoned, unlike, say, Ogre, which is horrible, because never Ogre the Alistair, because they're going to search Invocation, and now you just gave them a light in the graveyard anyway, so you just really kind of hurt yourself. But Gamma summons to the field, so they won't be able to just Invocation if they have it in their hand, unless they use a light monster in their hand. Otherwise, you can also save it or use it on the Ecclesia. I kind of like to let them use Ecclesia at first, because a lot of the time, because I'll use the Gamma, like, save it for the Maximus play then to stop the Winda or something like that, and or even the shit all like Al Capone to try and stop the Winda play and let them use the Ecclesia and lock themselves out of the extra deck if they open up with it. I mean, if they opened up with it, it's because they aren't going to really go into it anyway, but I'm usually not too concerned about that. So just a little insight from what we pick. Droll Knockbird, crazy good. The deck searches a ton. You know, you have the Meltdown, the potential talents, the Alistair, the Ecclesia. Like, there's a lot of searching. So Droll Knockbird, really good. Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. You can hit the Nadir Servant because it includes from graveyard into the effect. You can actually, when they use Invocation, you can Ghost Bell, and if they don't have an Alistair in hand, the effect just resolves without effect because it cannot banish the Alistair in the graveyard. Skullmeister, this is actually probably the meta matchup that Skullmeister is not the greatest against. I mean, they have the Al Capone, if they're running that you can Skullmeister, or the Invocation effect, which could come up pretty big because that's how they recur and just kind of grind out the wins, is by just recycling that Invoked engine. So I mean, Meister by all means is not dead or bad versus the matchup. Just of the big four decks, it is probably the worst matchup. Ash Blossom. I mean, you can Ash Blossom the deck, like, pretty much. You know, your Ecclesia, your Meltdown, your Alistair, your Nadir Servant. Probably don't hit the Terraforming, but you could Ash the Terraforming. Nibiru is just bad because, like we already said, they make Makaba by their fourth summon. I mean, I guess if you're main decking it, you're better off still using it and make them discard a monster just to, you know, get that monster out of hand. So by all means, if you are main decking Nibiru and you have it, just use it, waste it, force them to, you know, lose that card out of their hand, because, I mean, otherwise Nibiru's just dead in your hand. You might as well make use of it somehow. Infinite Impermanence, you can force the negate if you save it for the Makaba. Usually by the time Wind is on the field, you probably have a monster already, so it's not necessarily going to work out great that way. But yeah, you can open up your turn and just save it and use it on the Makaba, and now they have to negate it. And a lot of time they won't have a trap in hand, so it will actually negate the Makaba. But even if they had that trap in hand, you know, they're probably just going to save the card in their hand and take the negate, because negating it really doesn't do anything for them. So you can force the negate, you can negate the Makaba. Otherwise, I mean, you can hit Alistair, you can hit Ecclesia, these other things. So Imperm isn't terrible in the matchup. If you don't have a monster, it can actually save you big time versus that Winda. Because like we said, even with the Makaba, a lot of time they won't have a trap in their hand. So what are some side deck cards and cards that you can use to counter them? Well, once again, Artifact Lancia shines here because they play Invocation. You throw Lancia, they need an Alistair in hand now because they cannot banish the one in the graveyard. Or similar to the Ghost Bell, the Invocation just resolves without effect. Ice Dragon's Prison can come up here. They'll have like their Dogmatika cards. A lot of them are the same type, or even just using it specifically like to stop the Shadal play if you went first by summoning their Shadal monster out of the graveyard. You don't even have to use the banishing part of the effect, just getting the key cards that they need in the graveyard out of the graveyard, similar to Alistair, like chain to the Invocation and summon the Alistair. Different Dimension Ground, another card, because, well, they want their cards in the graveyard. So if you flip Different Dimension Ground on them, they can't have Alistair get banished because they're not going to be able to use the Invocation. Dimension Barrier, really good because you can call fusions, obviously. Anti-Spell Fragrance, they rely on spells a lot, you know, Nadir Servant, Invocation, Meltdown, all these cards that are pretty detrimental to the strategy. So if they have to set them for a turn, you're pretty much going to stop their turn. Torrential Tribute, really good. I mean, it's probably one of the best traps of the format. Who would have thought a card being that old would be so good in today's game? There's not a ton of destruction, protection being played. Rivalry and Goes and Match, both again really good. Like, oh, summon Alistair, Link Almirage, then just flip Rivalry or Gozen on them, and they're not going to be able to do a whole lot. I mean, you could even flip it on the Alistair, and they're not going to be able to link it off more often than not. Dark Ruler No More comes up pretty big because you can turn off the Makaba, but also you can hit the Winda. I don't care if I can't OTK my opponent. I don't care if I can't deal that damage. I'm perfectly fine wiping their board and then gaining control of the match instead. So Dark Ruler No More, really strong. Your big board wipes, more often than not, you're just going to force the Macabre negate, like with your Lightning Storms, with your things like that. Evenly matched can be okay, depends on like how much their board builds up. They don't always have this big board right off the bat, and they'll probably keep the Macabre or Winda turn 1, but by all means, especially if they like went full combo, they have the Macabre, the Winda, the Punishment, like everything set up. Evenly matched can actually come in really big, especially if they don't have that trap in hand to negate with their Macabre. So these are just some of the things that we suggest to do to beat the deck and to play, well, to beat the deck. That's what we're going for there. We got it the first time. So if you guys have any other cards that we missed, if you disagree with anything, as always, let us know in the comment section down below. Let's discuss and take down the meta together. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video as well. We'll begin working on the other ones soon. So take care and see you guys next time.